but it's so true. It's trust with yourself too, that you can do a really great job, that you can, create a space for your practice to exist that really does make a difference in the world. So
Do you ever have so many questions and no one to ask, so they're just wasting away on Google searches you'll forget about in an hour or so?
We had that same problem, and that's why we created the RD2BE podcast, a resource for dietetic and nutrition students looking for answers that their peers don't have.
We are students Macy and Emily and registered dietitian Carl Barnes. We engage in conversations and learn from RDs.
Join us weekly as we gain insight into the unique journeys of registered dietitians all over the country.
Welcome back to another week of the RD2BE podcast. I'm your registered dietitian host, Carl Barnes. This is our weekly podcast where we sit down with a different awesome registered dietitian each week to showcase the diversity of opportunity in the profession and really dismantle the notion that there is a traditional career path, to really show that no matter where you are, if you're a student about to become a dietitian or you're 20 years into your career, you can do literally anything. So we're really excited to be sitting down with someone who knows exactly about this topic, Jennifer McGurk from Pursuing Private Practice. Really honored to have you here and learn more about what you do.
thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here. So thank you so much.
And I'm Jenna, your RD2BE. And so Jennifer, can you give us a little background into what made you decide to become a registered dietitian? Where did your journey begin?
Yes. So actually my journey began with an eating disorder, and I am very open and honest about my own struggle because I try to take the shame away from disordered eating, because a lot of people go through mental health stuff. A lot of people, we all live in diet culture. So of course there's perfect storms happening all the time with disordered eating. So I became a dietitian. Not became a dietitian, but I went to school to become a dietitian because I thought, hey, I want to solve my own problem, and then I'm going to help all the other people that want to solve this problem. And lo and behold, thank goodness that I found, eventually once I had graduated college and done my internship, that I found eating disorder recovery. And at that point, I was a brand new dietitian in the field. And I went through this parallel process of finding recovery for myself and realizing hey, this traditional path of quote unquote weight loss doesn't really work for the majority of people. I want to figure out how to help people have a great relationship with food. So at that point, I had found intuitive eating. It opened the door for me to find health at every size. That opened the door for me to find body liberation work. And at that point, I was just like, what is this entire world that is so different than what I had learned about when I was in school? I want to be a part of this. So through a ton of supervision, a ton of work on myself, I really decided that I wanted to be a non-diet dietitian. And from there, I opened up my own private practice because, quite frankly, it's very hard to find a weight inclusive non-diet dietitian job. And I just said, there's something driving me to be my own boss. I want to be I want to have my business. And that's when I decided to open up my private practice all the way back in 2011.
Awesome. And it's really great seeing how what you're currently working with your clients and stuff you've experienced on their end as well, because I'm sure that definitely gives you a great, not cutting edge, but kind of empathy part of it with working with your clients. And so for people listening in and are possibly interested in your education pathway, how you got to where you went. Actually, the dietetic internship that you did was with the Johns Hopkins, the big fancy Bayview Medical Center. And so kind of talking about that program, and for people who are definitely interested in it, what did that internship kind of look like for you? Was it more competitive than other internships, or
Yes. Oh my gosh. I know when I saw that question ahead of time, it took me back because that was 2007 that I graduated from Bayview. And I mean, I went to college at Penn State and had a nutrition science degree, which was a great stepping point. And I love Penn State and I love Hopkins too. It was a very competitive internship. I think time internships weren't as competitive as they are currently in this present day. However, it was really tough to go through the entire application process, the interview process, and to be accepted there at Bayview, Johns Hopkins Bayview Medical Center. But it was an amazing experience. I mean, the internship year is hard, and I would be lying if I said it was easy, but it really did teach me that I could do anything. If I could get through the internship, I could do anything. And that's a huge shout out to all the preceptors and the clinical directors and people that were there at the time. They pushed us a lot. Like, it was hard, but at the end of the internship, I felt confident that I could be a dietitian, and it gave me the opportunity to literally say to these potential jobs that I had, that I was applying for, hey, I just survived, this amazing internship, and I have a lot of experience, and I bet I could do a really good job working for your organization. So that
And
internship helped me get my first job at a diabetes center, and that is where my career really began.
awesome. Yeah. And I think it's a lot of people, especially because dietetic internships, they're unpaid. I feel like a lot of people, it doesn't take away value from the internship, but they're like, oh, it's unpaid experience. So it like doesn't count the same as work experience. But if I'm not mistaken, with the Johns Hopkins one, don't you have like a different rotation every week, or they're very rigorous with kind of hopping you from different rotations?
Yes. Well, so I can't speak to what it's like right now because I do think they have made changes. But back when I did it, I still remember it was a different color folder every single week. And we had everything organized for us in the sense of this was our schedule. We were going to be in this certain department for nutrition. Here were the competencies that we had to meet. Here were the exercises and assignments that we had to do. And at the end of the week, it was all done. So we went from, and there were, I think, 12 of us at the time. So we went from different departments and organizations, and usually one department had 1 to 2 interns. So we were kind of sometimes going through it alone, sometimes going through it together, or I should say with a partner. So basically they took all of us through their program. Some people started with clinical, some people started with food service, some people started with community, but at the end of the internship, we were all, ready to take the RD exam and had gotten so much experience.
Yeah, awesome. And when we talk about experience, do you remember anything you did in your undergrad that made you prepared or become a really good candidate for a competitive internship like Johns Hopkins?
Yes. Well, how you are going to stand out is really the question that anyone should ask themselves. Because when you are applying to an internship, you want to make sure that you can show off your leadership capability. You want to make sure that you can really tell people that you are a good match for the program because of why, and that you're going to do a great job at helping the organization and really having an amazing experience in the dietetic internship. And internship directors want to know that you are going to be responsible. You are going to get your work done on time. You're going to help move the organization forward. Like, it's an amazing opportunity to really try on being a dietitian in a way. So as hard as the year is, I think you should go into it knowing that, yes, it's an unpaid opportunity, but here are some ways that I can practice for my future career.
Definitely. And going in with the intention to learn and kind of understanding this isn't a first job, this is more so like my first real life learning experience, that really does help switch the mindset. And I'm not saying that that can take off stress, but it can probably help with just kind of preparing for each internship rotation, and especially being flexible. Just treat it as a new learning experience for sure.
Exactly. And you're not going to know exactly what you love. Like, I knew that I wanted to go into counseling and private practice from the very beginning because I love the outpatient work. I love helping people, but I didn't exactly know that I wanted to do eating disorders or intuitive eating, health at every size work. I didn't find that until maybe 2007 or so. So, or 2008, probably 2009. So honestly, my internship in 2007, it was a great experience for me to just try things on to see if I liked it, see if I didn't like it. And I almost wish I could go back and kind of have the internship experience knowing what I know now. So my advice to everyone is to just literally treat it like it is a job, and that you're trying on different jobs to see what you like and what you don't like. Because it's a hard year, but
Mhm. Yeah, and it's definitely just a lot at once. And so you did talk about how you focus on intuitive eating, health at every size, eating disorders, that realm. And so with your time at Johns Hopkins, was there any specific, because you said that you learned a lot, were there any specific things that you learned that you currently use now in your career as a registered dietitian?
Oh my gosh, yes. So right now my career is a little bit unconventional, but I know that you all love that because this podcast I feel like focuses on that type of thing.
We touch
So
all areas. Mhm.
I know. I am the CEO of Pursuing Private Practice. So my company exists to help other dietitians start and grow private practices. So I was a solopreneur in my own private practice for such a long time before I opened up Pursuing Private Practice and eventually transitioned into building this company. But the internship prepared me for some of the hardest things that I have done in my career. So, number one, it prepared me to start, not necessarily start a private practice, because the business stuff, I feel like no internship, well, maybe a couple of internships actually prepare you for, but most internships don't give you the business information, which is very, very sad. And I hope to change that someday. But the internship absolutely prepared me to start counseling experience and have all of the clinical knowledge needed to work with clients. If I went directly from my nutrition undergraduate degree to counseling, I would have missed all of the real life stuff that happens, because we know, like, someone, I'll take a cardiovascular client, like someone in the ICU, just had a heart attack, stepping down into like a regular floor, needing education about a cardiac way to eat, that might include gentle nutrition recommendations for cardiovascular health. I would have said, okay, graduated Penn State. Here are a list of all the different foods that this person needs to eat. And here's a list of all the different foods that this person doesn't need to eat. And now how I counsel is the exact opposite of that quote unquote list. It's figuring out about the person, understanding their likes and dislikes. Like, what are their problems? What are their barriers? What's their life circumstances and situations? And how are we going to work together in order to change someone's health in the way of nutrition? So if I never had my internship, I wouldn't have had to practice the opportunity working with people.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And so for me personally, I'm an empath and I'm really looking forward to that counseling side for getting to know people. But I know the ICU, those can be some pretty stressful, then they can have some pretty heart-wrenching experiences that you have to experience pretty much with them as a registered dietitian or as an intern on that end.
Yeah.
And so for me personally and other RD2Bs that are very emotionally driven, how do you connect, like, do you have any recommendations for connecting with the patient but without getting in your head too much, like getting too
Oh,
emotional or
yeah.
kind of focusing on the I'm counseling, I'm helping this person, but also preserving myself and well-being as well.
Exactly. I would say the more I learned about supervision, everything you just said goes into supervision. But I didn't know what supervision was until maybe I was like 2 years into my career. But I have participated in supervision probably since 2 years into my career, and I still do supervision now, and it is so helpful. So supervision is a place where you, as the clinician, get to hold space with someone else that's a supervisor. And I should say, really honestly, the supervisor is holding space for you and all of the stuff that comes up when we're working with other humans. So there are things, and I don't have to get into it now. I can certainly tell you more about this later, but countertransference, transference, there are issues that come up of, our own stuff that comes up in counseling sessions a lot. It's stuff that we feel, like our emotions, our responses to client situations, and having a supervisor to kind of bounce some ideas off of, to tell our supervisor, like, this is how I'm feeling. This really got to me. This is what's frustrating. This angers me. It's not therapy. Supervision is not therapy,
Mhm.
but it's a place that we can process our own emotions about our client cases. And what you just said just describes the need for that so much.
Yeah, because it's not like it's a bad thing. It's more so just
Oh,
having
it's
the
not.
right,
No.
yeah, it honestly adds to the experience and it's mainly
Yeah,
just finding the right method so that you're not burning yourself in the process. And kind of
exactly.
going more into supervising, like what would be a real life example of that, like put into practice in a clinical or in one of your counseling sessions?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest example that comes up for me in what I do right now in pursuing private practice, and especially in our program Dietitian Business School, is help people with certain stuff that comes up in counseling sessions. So a big example is enforcing a cancellation policy. How many dietitians struggle with enforcing a cancellation policy because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We don't want to charge if we're not doing the work. I mean, this stuff comes up all the time. So one of the things that we can talk about in supervision is that if a client is constantly canceling on you and you're charging for a cancellation fee, how does that make you feel? Like, do you have any money mindset things that you want to work through? Like, what's your relationship with money like? So again, it's not meant to be therapy, but it's meant to kind of bring in the context of whatever situation is going on with a client and bringing up your stuff attached to that situation. Another example could be a client is not getting better. How does that make you feel as a dietitian? Or a client got better in 2 sessions and you don't necessarily believe them. What's coming up for you with that? So there are a lot of certain situations that are really helpful just to have a mentorship around when it comes to building your business, but also to doing this client work.
And definitely. And so, because you, like you said before, you're your own boss. And so when it comes to having that mentorship, people don't traditionally see private practice owners or any business owner having a mentorship with anyone. And so how have you specifically found that type of mentorship as an owner of a business?
Oh my gosh, I would not be where I am today without my support system, my supervisors, my mentors, my business best friends. I mean, let me tell you, it takes a village to grow a business. And I give everyone so much credit. My team too. My team is such a huge support system in my life. I give everyone so much credit for everything that they've done to help me grow the business. So it really is so important to acknowledge and be so grateful for all the support that I've gotten. And I mean, it was hard because it's not readily available back when I started my business, but that's why pursuing private practice exists, because I wanted to create dietitian business school because I didn't go to, any type of dietitian business school. So I really wanted to create that for other people so they can feel that support.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's definitely a very specific niche of dietetics. And even with like starting any business, not everyone who graduates from college is going to want to start a business. But what's really great about and what's great about dietetics is starting a private practice is it's very eyeballing for a lot of people just because it can be lucrative, it can be on your own schedule, but a lot of people, they see all the flashy parts of it, but then the work that goes behind it and the actual like behind the scenes to get it going, it's kind of, you figure it out once you throw yourself into it kind of thing. And
yes. So entrepreneurship is everyone. I have a graphic for you. It's just like anything though. It's just like eating disorder recovery. It's just like doing anything hard. Like we think it's going to be a linear line and that we're going to get one more client every single week and it's going to grow so linear. But in reality, it is twists and turns and ups and downs. And you can have the best day and the worst day all in the same day. So that's entrepreneurship. But the thing is, like when there's risk, there's reward. So people that have this type of personality that I just say, like, there's something in my brain that like has to be an entrepreneur. I'm a horrible employee. I understand what it's like. So if you have that too, welcome to the greatest club in the world. But it's really awesome as a dietitian to be your own boss. It's so cool.
For sure. And we're definitely going to talk more about your private practice, but before we hop in, we will kind of want to talk a little bit about the credentials that you have that kind of helped you with your private practice, specifically with eating disorders, because for me specifically, I have no shame either. I had an eating disorder, and that's also what made me want to become a registered dietitian. And one thing that I'm interested in, and also what I'm sure a lot of RD2Bs are, is the certified eating disorder registered dietitian specialist credential. And what's the specific for the credential, the specific numbers, not numbers, the letters?
Yes, this actually might be confusing too because IADEP actually just changed it. So it used to be the CEDRD, the
Mhm.
Certified Eating Disorders Registered Dietitian, and then I also have the supervisor credential too.
Gotcha.
They just changed it. So I hope I'm saying this right. If not, someone please correct me. But everyone now is a certified eating disorder specialist.
Gotcha.
So before they had like specialist, registered nurse, registered dietitian, and then they also had like a creative arts, I think, sort of certification. But now everybody is just a certified eating disorder specialist. So that is
Gotcha.
officially my credential now. So I'm no longer a CEDRD, I'm a CEDS.
Gotcha. Okay. And so with that CEDS credential, if and we kind of did talk into what made you want to pursue it initially, but what were the steps that you did that to get the CEDS credential?
Yes. So I'm not the best to talk about it now because when I did it, it's since changed.
Mhm.
So I believe I have first of all, it's through IADEP. So I would just encourage anyone to go to the IADEP website to look at the
Yeah.
latest stuff, the latest recommendations.
Cross-reference, like just
Cross-reference. Don't take exactly what I say as the truth because you never know.
Mhm.
But it is a certain amount of hours that you have to be practicing. It's a certain amount of supervision that you've had to have. Some of it can be, well, I think it's half and half, but don't quote me on that. But individual supervision and group supervision. So you
Mhm.
can also participate in group supervision, which is really great. It's having a certain amount of CEUs dedicated to eating disorder, education and learning, a case study, and I feel like I'm missing something else. Maybe one more thing that you have to do in order to apply to get the credential. So it took me about 2 years to get all of my hours, get the experience, do supervision. And it was a lot easier to do it when I did it way back in the day than
Mhm.
it is right now. But I think it was a great, I don't want to speak on behalf of IADEP because there in our field there have been some things that have come out that IADEP, there have been some recommendations for IADEP to be a little bit more inclusive. So I do want to have that on record because I'm not speaking on behalf of IADEP, and I
Yeah.
do think that IADEP has some things that they have amazing consultants that they could pay for, especially in the BIPOC community, that would help them learn a little bit more to be inclusive. But I do think that when I did my CED RD at the time, now CEDS, it was a great opportunity for me to really immerse myself in education and learning.
Mhm.
I do think that I've had to seek additional resources, especially when it comes to working with people of different races, different cultures, just so I can be the best clinician that I could be because I don't
Absolutely.
know what I don't know. But at the time when I did my CEDRD, it was a great learning opportunity just to immerse myself in like medical education, knowledge, counseling skills, actually write out a case study from start to finish because I had never done that before for one of my clients and I had a really great case study. So it was an awesome opportunity. I don't think I think it does need work in being more inclusive, especially now that we know that eating disorders exist across so many different races and cultures. And we are doing a disservice thinking it's only a particular type of person that actually gets eating disorder treatment.
Absolutely. And when you mentioned how you had to do outside research into getting more like overall a more holistic approach to that credential,
Yeah.
what exactly did you do to get like kind of the
Yeah.
whole open field of it?
Can I talk about the most amazing resource coming up if this will air in time? Whitney and Angela have decided to do a BIPOC eating disorders conference. And it's going to be, I think it's July 20th to 22nd. Although again, I might have that date wrong. It's definitely in the 20s though. And I can get you the website to blast out. It
Yes.
has the most incredible speakers. I'm so excited for the conference and I sponsored it. So I'm just one of maybe like 25 sponsors at this
But you
point,
are
but it
still
is
one, and that's what counts. Yes.
still one.
Mhm.
But they have the most unbelievable, I mean, like they have put together the most unbelievable conference. So I would gladly recommend that as
Mhm.
being like the resource that I'm going to be fully participating in.
Awesome. And I think also a great thing to tie in that I think is a good way to get a more holistic experience is actually getting on the field experience. Like I'm sure with your
Yeah.
private practice, you don't get the same patient demographic for every single session, of
Oh yeah.
course. Hmm.
Oh my gosh, yes. And just talking about the fact that eating disorders exist in the queer community, eating disorders exist in the BIPOC community. I mean, if you have blog posts and you have things like that, especially as a white person, I feel like obviously I want more clinicians in this space that look different because they bring different cultural awareness to so many different populations. And it's so important for us to match dietetics to the actual population, like the
Hmm.
world, and it doesn't match right now. But I think if you're just aware of limitations and shortcomings and just to be aware of that stuff, I think it's really respectful, and I think you start to gain trust.
Hmm. Oh, and trust. So, kind of going into trust, would you say trust with yourself or trust with the? Yeah.
That's a good question. I meant trust with everyone else, but it's so true. It's trust with yourself too, that
Mhm.
you can do a really great job, that you can, create a space for your practice to exist that really does make a difference in the world. So,
Awesome. Yeah. And I think also with the kind of trust, not only trust in others, trust in yourself, but also that self-confidence. But confidence comes with not only like, oh, I know everything, but the confidence of saying, I don't know everything as
yes,
well.
exactly.
Because I think
Exactly.
that's a great thing to take in with that. And so with your
Exactly.
private practice and how, because we did talk a little bit about how you had a bunch of support, you knew from the beginning that you didn't want to be on the employee side. You wanted to like hold your own reins and start your own private practice. But when you were jumping into that, you had that conviction that you wanted to have a private practice, but did you have any hesitations, which I'm sure like hesitations, fears, or worries going into it?
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I had imposter syndrome, I had doubt, I had fear, I mean, I had anxiety, overwhelm, I had everything. So if you are struggling with any of that, please know that I know exactly how that feels.
Mhm.
It's tough. Like in a world that, I mean, I think it's a little bit better now, but in the world when I started my private practice, I heard from everybody just like, why do you want to be a business owner? Why would you do that to yourself? Like, why can't you just get a job? So it is tough. It is tough. But I had to take one next step, one foot in front of the other and say, like, I'm not going to have it all figured out, and that's okay. And
Mhm.
just like the linear graph where we think we're going to get one new client every single week, it's not true. It literally is ups and downs and twists and turns. So just knowing that is
Mhm.
always really, really helpful because you will have really bad days when you're a business owner, but
Mhm.
you'll have really amazing days at the same time.
Awesome. And is that kind of what kept you? Because when we're talking about motivation, imposter syndrome is a
Yeah.
very big thing in this, not even just in the dietetics profession, but in students as well. And so when you were having those really rough days where that graph is not linear at all, would you say what kept moving you forward was the, hey, even though today's not good, tomorrow may be better? Or were there other tips or cope ways that you coped when you had those hard
Yeah.
parts?
Absolutely. I think leaning on it's so funny I'm going to say this, not even leaning on my family and friends because they just don't get it if they're not business owners, but leaning on other business owners
Mhm.
has been my most helpful tip because they get it. Like they get that in the same day you're going to have the worst hour of your life and the best hour of your life, when it comes to your business. So finding my business support system has been so huge. And I mean, I just hope that I can create a little piece of that for other people in this company because it is so valuable to
Mhm.
have other people that have been through the same ups and downs that you have had.
Awesome. And when it came to growing that network, how did you go about it? Because I'm sure at the beginning it was kind of just all with any business, it's a little all over the place. You're learning while you're building. And so when it
Yeah.
came to building that network, how did you go about doing it? How did you build not only just connections, but meaningful connections?
Yeah. So I found a lot of my friends very naturally because our space in the non-diet world is actually pretty small.
Mhm.
And I tried to find people that had similar values to me. So signing up for some peer supervision stuff, connecting with other people on, like, it wasn't Instagram at the time, but like connecting with other people through listservs and social media when I first got started. Now it's Instagram, of course. It is so fun just to say hi and build relationships. Like going to in-person events if you can in your area, if it's safe to do so, absolutely amazing. So just really building, like, not being afraid to say, like, this is what I stand for. This is what I believe in. This is the type of client I want to work with. This is the type of dietitian I want to be. You will start to attract other people that want to be like that to your networking circle, and you will form those authentic relationships with everyone. And that's the key, to really be authentic in your relationships, because networking is not just handing out business cards. It's literally forming relationships with other people.
Definitely. And a relationship is two ways. Like, not
Yeah.
only is it like you giving to that person, they're giving to you. Like, it's definitely a mutual thing for sure. And I love what you
Exactly.
mentioned about authenticity, because it sucks because imposter syndrome is so prevalent that we're all like, oh, am I even worthy of this? Am I even like just
Mhm.
worthy of all these great things that I'm doing? When it really, like, switching that mindset to being that conviction, that knowing what you want to do, that having that authenticity, that's really going to be what propels you out into finding your niche.
Oh yeah.
And and
And
you
you will
kind
mess up. Don't be afraid of that.
yeah, and
You
also
will mess up. Sometimes we're so afraid to mess up, but if we know we're going to mess up, like, we can just say to ourselves, okay, we'll mess up and we'll figure out what to do next.
that's honestly such a great thing to take as well, because fear of failure, there's like
Yeah.
so much anxiety and stuff circulating within this profession of just the what
Yeah.
ifs, the I'm not good enough, the what if I fail and stuff. But
Yeah. Exactly.
failure, it sucks when you say it like this, but failure is inevitable. But like you said, if
Yeah.
you have that preliminary mindset of it might not work out, it might work out, but being fully aware that it might not, and that's okay, is
Yeah.
something that's really good to just hone in on, whether it's with the business, whether it's with the internship, just with any stage in
Yeah.
the dietetic profession. And so
Exactly.
we did talk about and I feel like we are covering so many things that undergrad and dietetic internships
Yeah.
do not cover at all, with like the paperwork, or like, with the books, or just with even the clinical aspect. And so we did touch about it a lot, but if you could, like, maybe I guess have a little condensed version of if there was anything you didn't learn in undergrad or your dietetic internship about your business that you wish that you knew beforehand.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, so my undergrad had, I think, two classes about business, maybe one class about counseling too, which was helpful, which was great. And then in my internship program, we had to do this huge, like, oh my gosh, like massive, um, like a bit like business type of project. So I even forget what we did. We did some sort of like center, so like wellness center or something like that, where we had to put together a business plan, and it was fine. But honestly, I wish I would have learned more about the real life practical stuff of private practice versus like this like theoretical business plan.
Mhm.
Because we can make a theoretical business plan all we want, but if it's about something that we're actually not going to be executing in the future, it's like, here's a SWOT analysis of this pretend business that I'm making up. So I would love to see more private practice things in undergrad and internships. Like, I really hope to make an influence in that area. That's kind of the next thing that I want to try to do as an entrepreneur, like to help students or interns really figure out like how to think about business in a way that gets them excited to be a dietitian. Because so much of the time you go to your internship, and this is nothing against internships, but it happens all the time, and you go and you're so excited to become a dietitian at the beginning, and you go through your internship and you constantly hear like, you have to do clinical first, or you have to work in a hospital, or you have to do things that you don't want to do, or private practice is so hard. And it's coming from a lot of people that mean well, because we're trying to protect our students and our interns, because business is hard. But I wish we got to experience like the amazing, incredible things that being an entrepreneur has to offer our students, because so many people want to do private practice. I wish we had more resources to give them, because that literally creates excitement again for students and interns that go into an internship and they're like, well, why did I want to become a dietitian? This is
Mhm.
not what I want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, for like those undergrads and those dietetic interns, for those that have that initial spark of, I can't wait to be an RD, I can't wait to have my own private practice, what experiences do you think they should or could pursue? Of course, like if you're an undergrad student or a dietetic intern, you can't just, start a business at the drop of a hat per se. But if someone wanted to get their feet wet into what it's like behind the scenes of a private practice, what
Yeah.
avenues or experiences would you recommend for RD2Bs?
Yeah. I wish we had more rotations in counseling. I wish we had more rotations in behavior change. I wish we had more rotations with social justice, because I think that that's a huge missing piece for a lot of our curriculum. I wish we had more rotations in business. I wish we had more opportunities for dietitians and students to literally see, like, what is it like behind the scenes of a business. I think that would be so awesome. So
Yeah, and I do.
fingers crossed we can fix this eventually.
Definitely. And because I think the best thing we have right now is there are, again, not all, but there are some internships that have elective rotations, or they have some that
Yeah.
have business aspects where it's just sprinkled in maybe on this region. But then,
Yeah.
you have this entire like chunk right here that's like, okay, what's a business? And then
Yeah.
and then like what sucks is some people are stuck in the location that they're at. And so when it comes to access to those different like either business oriented internships or those other specific niche internships, they're kind of stuck where they're at, and they just kind of have to work with the resources that they have. And so
Yeah.
I'm also optimistic. Just with the pandemic, the virtual setting has really opened a lot of doors to just learning a lot more about different perspectives, ideas, and parts of dietetics. Because, for example,
Yeah.
a lot of private practices now, from what I've seen, they don't actually have an actual permanent building where they have their sessions. A lot
Yeah.
of them are virtual. And what's really great is, I think, because we've spoke to some business owners as well, where they've had undergraduate students that have cold emailed them or just reached out to just like ask questions or help them with their private practice, and just kind of getting the go around that way. And so I'm super optimistic with the virtual setting to see where that will go, not only with private practices, but students as well.
Exactly. Exactly. I think COVID taught the world that we have to accommodate more virtual everything. And I hope to see like the dietetics profession catch up. One thing I'm a little bit nervous about is that some insurance companies are dragging their feet paying for things. I don't accept insurance in my private practice directly, but I've heard from a lot of people that insurance companies are not necessarily reimbursing for telehealth as much as they used to. So that is something that I do think we have to get our academy involved in, because I mean, my private practice doesn't rely on insurance, but a lot of private practices do. So we want to make sure that we're paid fairly for the work that we're doing, whether or not it's in an office or telehealth.
And so we talked a lot about private practice, kind of the go-arounds that a lot of people don't know about either starting it, building it, growing it, especially in the current culture climate of a virtual setting and kind of that transition. And so you actually have a free workshop called the 5 Steps to Start Your Private Practice this week. And so could you go a little bit into that and how that could benefit RD2Bs or interns or just anyone in the dietetic profession?
Yes, yes. And we actually had a lot of students in RD2BE sign up. So it definitely is an awesome resource. So it is pursuingprivatepractice.com/start-your-private-practice. That's the URL you can do to sign up. Completely free for anyone that is a dietitian. It is 1.5 CEUs. So that's awesome. You can get a free 1.5 CEUs. And basically it goes through the steps that you need to do in order to start your private practice this week. We have a couple extra bonus things in there too, to really get you started with your private practice. But I am a full believer that providing this information is so helpful for people, no matter if they decide to do a program with Pursuing Private Practice or not. So take this information, get your private practice set up. You can do it within a week. It's not as hard as what people think it is, but you're going to need support along the way. So if you want to get that support from our company, we are happy to do that for you. We have a course called Beginner Basics. We also have a program called Dietitian Business School, but there are so many other amazing resources out there too. This workshop gives you the literal stepping points, like the stepping stones to really get the bullet points done that you need to check off. So I'm so excited to provide it for free.
Yeah, and it's a really great resource that kind of, and I'm sure that it covers I wish I knew, like a lot of things that I'm sure that current private practice owners are like, well, I wish I knew this before starting, or just a lot of the I wish I knews.
Yes, I wish I knew that I didn't have to have 20 Google tabs open at the same time because that's kind of what I was doing.
Yeah, and it kind of puts it all in a nice little neat little package.
Yeah.
And when it comes to signing up, is it like, what does the course actually like look like on the receiver's end? Are they videos, interactive? Are there
Yeah.
pages?
The workshop is completely free to sign up. It is, you sign up, you get on my email list. So my email list is not a place where we spam you. Trust me, my email list is full of tons of value. So please stay on there. But basically you sign up for the workshop, you're on my email list, you get sent to a URL and you can watch the training from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for just giving a bunch of information about just the eating disorder realm, more representation in the dietetics profession. We even talked about just the unknowns with businesses, and I'm super excited to see where your business goes, especially with like providing for RD2Bs, but also new and up and coming professionals interested in a private practice.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. And it always just like reignites my passion for helping dietitians in business. It is what I am meant to do. And I'm so happy to be here. So thank you so much for everything.